We had to descend down to fly underneath the TMA-1 and then down to 5,000 feet underneath the TMA-2, and we landed on a very small airstrip right here. Hi guys, welcome back to Paramotor Adventure Stories. We are still in the planning phase of the Paramotor Adventure, and today I want to give you a few stories what to pay attention to when looking at the aviation chart so you don't get into trouble breaking the law on your trip. Story number one, how we flew the highest peaks of Slovakia, the high Tatras, which is 3,000 meters, 10,000 feet. That is a pretty tricky situation in terms of avoiding a controlled airspace. The high Tatra mountains are probably my favorite mountain range to fly because they're exceptional. They are just different than any other mountain range that I have flown before because they're so small. I mean, don't get me wrong, they're high, they're 3,000 meters, 10,000 feet. They look just like the Alps. You have rocky peaks with snow and avalanches and everything that comes with it, but they are short. The whole mountain range is 40 kilometers long and I don't know, maybe just 15 from the south to north. And this makes it exceptional because if you fly over, you actually can get the whole mountain range in your picture frame. And then as a reference, you have the flat land of Poland behind and the flat valley underneath you from the south. And it just pops out of flat land, so it makes it really exceptional. If you fly in the Alps, you may fly at a 3,000 meters peak, but next to it is another 3,000 peak. So the reference is, they don't look so big. But if the reference is the flat land, then suddenly you have these peaks, they look amazing. Anyway, so flying the high Tatras is a little bit tricky regarding the controlled airspace, but it is possible. So a quick example. So we came to that place from the south, flying over the low Tatra National Park. And as we were coming to the north, we had to descend down to fly underneath the TMA-1 and then down to 5,000 feet underneath the TMA-2, and we landed on a very small airstrip right here. This is the closest airstrip to the border of the CTR. And the next day, in the very morning, we took off and then flew underneath the TMA-2 all the way to the north, approached the mountains, and there we were allowed to climb all the way up to 3,000, flight level 100, that's 10,000 feet. And we had to stay over the mountains because a little bit to the south there is this CTR that you can't penetrate in. Theoretically, you can. It's legal in Slovakia as long as you have an airband radio and you are in contact with the tower. I did that a few years ago, but there is a way how to fly around the CTR, so why would we bother? So we flew over the Tatra mountains range and did the same trick, flying back. So even if there are some lines on the map, it doesn't mean that you can't fly there. You just need to check not just the outside borders of the CTRs and TMAs, but TMAs have also the bottom that you can fly under. It's fine. By far, this is not intended to be a guide how to read aviation charts. Just you need to do your homework or ask your instructor how to do it. You don't want to cause him trouble. One last thing, it's not only about CTRs and TMAs that are permanent, it's also about temporary flight restrictions. So make sure you check the NOTAM before you go flying, the notice to airmen and temporary flight restrictions, so you don't get into trouble with the law. Story number two, flying the low Tatras National Park in Slovakia, how we found a tiny little spot that we were legal to take off. It was on our Slovakia trip. In the Low Tatra National Park, it's a mountain range. It's marked in the aviation chart. In Slovak, I will translate it. It's called area with fauna sensitive to noise. Basically, no takeoffs and landings, and you need to maintain 300 meters vertical distance and 600 meter horizontal distance in our case. But as it is marked, we found a tiny little gap. So this dotted line is a border of one national park, and this is the border of another national park, and you have a tiny little gap in between here that is outside of national park. We took off right here in between 1 and the 2nd, and then we climbed, flew over here and back and there. That basically follows the main road, the main traffic, and that's excluded from the area. So we were able to land there. Our support car got us fuel, refueled, and continued to fly. So we were perfectly legal. So pay attention to the small details, and sometimes you can get around these areas pretty well. Yeah, it was an amazing flight. You remember, it was an evening flight with all the cumulus clouds being there, but not being active anymore and flying through and between them. That was awesome. Story number 3, my not so perfectly legal flight during the Icarus Trophy in the United States. I could say it wasn't my fault because I did check the aviation map and aviation chart. Here it is, skywector.com for United States, a perfect tool. And now, on the night before, I landed right here in, it's called Brigham City Regional Airport. So I landed here. In the next morning, super early, I took off and I had a stupid idea to fly over the Great Salt Lake and avoid controlled airspace CTRs from the west side. It's a pretty difficult airspace over there, and so not really possible to squeeze through. David Wainwright tried it on the Icarus Trophy, and he actually was penalized on the race because he flew over congested areas and there was no way how to get through this. So really it's not possible to fly through anywhere. So either you go on the east side through that mountain when you face high elevation takeoffs, or you go on the west side, which I chose this option, and it was a very stupid idea, flying over the Great Salt Lake for 2 hours with no water rescue system. Stupid. Anyway, let's come back to the aviation chart. So I took off at the Brigham, I think it's pronounced here this way, Brigham City Municipality Airport, and I flew straight to the south and right at the edge of this National Wildlife Refuge area. It's nicely marked in the map with the line with the dots. I had to fly low because of the other airspace restrictions, and I had to fly around it. The only trouble is that I was perfectly legal when you take into consideration this map, but the map is wrong. The actual borders of this National Wildlife Refuge are different. And I was actually flying straight over the refugee center where the park rangers are, straight over that building. And I didn't really get into trouble. Nobody reported me. And technically, looking at this map, I was perfectly legal flying at the very edge of this area. The main problem is that the aviation chart is wrong. The actual borders of the wildlife refugee area are different. The whole area is a little bit larger, and actually this border is kind of like steps, and I was flying straight over the main building where all the park rangers are. I didn't get into trouble, nobody reported that. It was super early in the morning, so I was probably not noticed. But seriously, unfortunately, you can't always rely only on the information that you find in the aviation chart. Flying probably a half mile to the east would get me safe and perfectly legal. Please double check the information you get. Guys, thanks for watching. I very much hope you found this video useful, so please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. It will motivate our team to continue. Thank you very much. The next chapter is, find places to refuel. We will talk about the Icarus Trophy. That was a very exciting time. Stay tuned. See you soon.